Well, you've certainly had some exciting events in your career, and some of these include your having been involved in arranging for the former and the present president of China to meet with Bill Gates. In the first case, I believe, in China, and in the more recent case, was it 2006, in the U.S., at the Microsoft headquarters and at Bill Gates' home. Could you tell us a little bit about this? It must have been exciting for you to be the emissary.
Love to. I'd love to talk about that. And it was certainly one of the highlights of my career.
I can imagine.
It's not every day that you can sort of helping arrange hosting your own president from a country where I grew up. It was definitely very interesting events, and was also something I never had experienced before. And one thing I never forget is that at the dinner at Bill Gates' house, I was the master of ceremony, so announcing walking into the dining hall of the president of People's Republic of China, and it was probably the most exciting moment of my life.
I can imagine. Well, Microsoft, where you work now as a general counsel, is a computer software company. And of course, internet use is a vexed topic in China. So how do you reconcile American notions of internet use with Chinese notions, which I'm sure is a question that you're asked all the time. So you can give me your standard answer, and maybe I can probe a little from there.
I think Microsoft, of course, is foremost a software company at the beginning, and when we started in China, and it was in the early 90s, it was a huge demand of Microsoft product, and it continued to be a huge demand. But as China, as the society matures, as the Chinese enterprise matures, there's a expectation that those intellectual properties, those software, are going to be paid for. That hasn't quite panned out yet. And I still have a great confidence that will, but it's not the case today. And in part because I think there's a general perception that there's not enough respect for intellectual properties in China.
Do you think that's true?
I think it's definitely true, but it also takes a complicated solutions to address what I believe a complicated issue. Just say China is not respecting intellectual property is probably not the right conclusion. Instead, I think we need to figure out why they are perceived to not respect intellectual properties. I believe there are historical reasons, there are cultural reasons, and there are also political reasons. And a combination of that result to what we see today in China. And to solve the issue, I also believe you need to solve it in the different ways that has a cultural, political, economic elements. It is very complicated. And in terms of the internet, of course, we all know China is today the largest internet user base in the world. And they're approaching, may even surpass 500 million users on the internet, which is more than the US population. And people are really began to access information that they never had before. And that too introduced a very complex environment where the society and the government may react to things that they didn't have to or they didn't even need to in the past.
So, okay, there's tremendous internet use, but what is the nature of censorship? Let's just be blunt about it. How extensive is it? Is it changing? That does seem to be the obstacle or the point of contention between Americans as they understand what's going on in China. And perhaps you could address that.
Sure. Was there a censorship in China? Of course, yes. How extensive? Well, if you look at the information that general internet users or netizens have in China, and I don't have a empirical data to say the percentage, but I can tell you based on my experience, the level of access, the level of freedom, if you will, in terms of people accessing information are tremendous. And I often say to my friends, especially my American friends, I look at China from a historical perspective or looking back. What other changes had happened in the last 30 years? I still remember the days where if you were even remotely disrespectful of the leaders, you could be put in jail very easily without any due process of any sort. Today, if you go to Chinese public places, if you understand Chinese, you will hear people talking about the politics and they're making satire type of jokes about their leaders, and pretty much everything is a fair game. Now, there are issues where Chinese government don't want to see to be populated on the internet, and they are using different technology to prevent that from spreading. But I would say on the whole, those are extremely small percentages